Hello everyone, Chris here, and today I'm just gonna zoom through some more or less known fun facts about game mechanics that not everyone might be aware of. Some of these are maybe not that helpful, whilst others I would consider really helpful. So without further delay, here are 20 more or less known tips for gameplay mechanics you might or might not know about in Dead by Daylight. Number 1. There is a few places where you can hit survivors through fences that might not be too obvious. Like this one at Dead Dog Saloon is probably the best one. In this loop, it doesn't even matter if the survivor is running in the middle and not right next to the fence for you to hit them. If they drop the pellet, that's a free hit. This also works with the other fence as well. You can also hit survivors in the main building at this Colvin Farms map, but that requires the survivors to run at the edge of that fence, which, well, they would rarely do. But still, it's a possibility. At the game, you can easily hit survivors over open holes, though you would have to consider if it's worth hitting them as you will fall down the hole. Did you also know that you can hit survivors at this pallet as well? But yeah, you will also drop down, so take that into consideration. Number 2. Since we are at the game, it's sometimes really difficult to find the gens on this map as a survivor. But if you look at these big closed gates, those will tell you where you will find generators. If you come across a closed gate like this, then you will know there is a generator on the other side of this one, as the generators are placed so they open these gates when they are completed. This could save you a lot of time. Number 3. Talking about finding gens, at Laris it's also sometimes really difficult to find the gens, and you can spend a lot of time running around hoping to find one. But did you know that if there are a gen inside any of these rooms on this map, the signs outside the room will flicker? That's a good telltale sign that there is a gen inside. Number 4. This might not be that useful, but Lightborn won't prevent a wraith from being burned out of his power. Since he doesn't need to actually get the flashlight in his face to be burned out, a flashbang can also be really effective, as turning away doesn't really help at all, and the flashbang will instantly burn him out of his cloak. Number 5. Speaking of burning away killers' powers, did you know that you will prevent a nurse from blinking if you aim a flashlight at her? You don't even need to aim it at her face, just point it towards her and she will be unable to blink. That is pretty damn crazy. As you can see on my UI, without any flashlight I can freely blink a second time, but with a flashlight aimed towards me, my option to blink disappears, and there's nothing I can do about it. Looking away doesn't help either, and neither does Lightborn. Holy damn, that is a good counter against a nurse. Number 6. Did you know that there is a hidden chest at Midwich? To trigger this Easter egg, you need to complete 2 gens in the correct order. The first gen you want to complete is the one in the chemistry lab. After this, you need to do the gen in the music room, which you can find right here. Now you'll just have to finish the rest of the gens and then trigger the endgame collapse. When this happens, the door in the courtyard will open, and this also has a lootable chest in it. Number 7. While we are at Midwich, this is probably a more well-known one, but I'll be honest, it took me months before I realized there was a passageway from the lower bathrooms to the upper bathrooms. Just break these breakable doors and there you go. Number 8. If you want to prevent a survivor from using head-on on you, and you have all the time in the world, just wait for the crows to appear. Do take into consideration that it does take 60 seconds for the first crow to appear. The survivor will no longer be able to use their perk, and you can no longer be stunned if they try to fast jump out of the locker. Number 9. If you leave Dredge's Revenant near a hook and go far enough away, this will still count as being far enough away from the hook to gain the benefits of perks like Make Your Choice and Hex Devour Hope. It will for sure cost you some time, but it's still a fun little trick. Number 10. Nemesis can still whip survivors over surprisingly high loops. As you can see right here, even in tier 2, he can whip a survivor over this truck. If a survivor ducks, however, he will not be able to hit them. This could be really useful in loops like this, either to get a surprise hit in, or fake your power to make them crouch and lose distance. Even in tier 2, you are able to hit survivors over fairly large loops, but it seems to be a difference between tier 2 and tier 3, but I can't confirm that. Number 11. Deathslinger can shoot through small openings, most known is the barred up windows around Shack. You can also shoot through other small openings as well. It might not be easy, but it's a possibility if your aiming is on fleek. Number 12, and another neat trick using a killer's power is the artist with the severed hands add-on. With this add-on, any survivor who is near a survivor with crows around them will also be swarmed with the crows. Now, this is pretty fun to use with discordance, which allows you to see if there is more than one survivor on a den. By summoning the birds in the same direction, but at different distances, you will be able to both infect survivors with the crows, while also injuring one of them. And to be honest, this never stops being fun. Just remember to put the birds within a certain distance from each other. Number 13. This is also a somewhat useless one, but it's still worth mentioning as it also never stops being fun. Behavior has put up invisible walls on a lot of high structures in the game, preventing you from using certain powers from high up. Luckily, they left the tower in Area of Crows alone, and you can leap from the tower with Victor. For some reason, it doesn't seem like you are able to latch onto survivors though, as I kept sliding off them instead. Behavior, you need to fix this. Number 14. This is kind of an evil one, but if you crouch after a survivor with an active trap on their head, that won't pause the timer. Since you are slower while crouching, they will gain some distance on you, but you can also moonwalk after them to also prevent the timer from pausing. In some way, with this mechanic, you can guarantee the survivor from dying from the trap, as they won't be able to get it off their head as long as you are chasing them. Take into consideration that at base, it takes 2.5 minutes for the trap to explode. But still, that's 2.5 minutes to get a survivor out of the game. Evil, won't recommend doing it, but I stupidly mentioned it anyway. Sorry. Number 15. This is something I see a lot of killers do already, but many don't. When you know you need to drop down somewhere, if it's a hole or whatnot, you want to do a lunge towards the hole, so you gain that extra speed boost from the lunge, but the penalty or cooldown will happen as you drop, so you actually gain some precious time while doing this. Number 16. Did you know that the Dredge gains a lot of Nightfall charges while hiding in a locker? Basically, anything you do as a Dredge gives you some sort of Nightfall charges, if it's using your teleport, your remnant, injuring survivors, hooking survivors, etc, etc. You can see right here how it works. You need 300 charges to activate Nightfall, and at base you gain 0.25 charges per second, increasing this by every survivor who is injured or dying. With 4 injured or dying survivors, you gain 4 charges per second. Compared to this, you gain 6 charges just by hiding in a locker. Now, I don't recommend just hiding in a locker to activate Nightfall, but it's still nice knowing as you can use this to your advantage depending on the match. Also, just knowing a bit how the Nightfall actually works can help you make better decisions throughout the match. So there is absolutely a way to make Nightfall activate as fast as possible, but I'm gonna make a video on that later. Number 17. The hug tech on Blight is well known, though still pretty difficult to do consistently as it takes a lot of practice. I highly recommend checking out the streamer Lilith Omen on how to do all the amazing flicks with Blight. Fun fact though I want to share anyways is that the game mechanic works in a way that when you do a hug tech with Blight, the angle you turn your camera is the way you will rush. But after about 0.5 seconds, the game will readjust your trajectory to your current camera angle, and that's how you do those pretty nice looking backward flicks. It requires a lot of practice, but at the end of the day, it's a fun fact. And that takes me to fun fact number 18. This one also relates to the camera angle, and if you have seen any of my other videos, I talk about this all the time, the reverse lunge. As with the hug tech, it doesn't really matter what direction you look at when you do a lunge, as you can still slide against a surface and do a reverse lunge. This won't work in the open though, as you would just stop dead where you are if you try. But by using a surface to slide against, this works perfectly. You can do both 90-degree lunges and 180-degree lunges like this. I highly recommend for you to start doing this right now. Number 19. The clown can throw his bottles in the ceiling to make the toxin affect a much larger area. This works pretty good if you are on an indoor map like the game for example. As you can see, the difference is pretty big between tossing a bottle at the ground and in the ceiling. Even on outdoor maps, it might be sometimes better to toss a bottle at a pole or a tree than just on the ground. But at the end of the day, it's very situational and you need to decide when it would be best to do it or not. Still, it's a nice little trick to do, especially on indoor maps. And number 20. Are you confused about where you will appear when you teleport as Freddy? Well, where you face won't matter, as it seems like every gen has a fixed position you will appear from. So the only way to get a hang of what direction you will be facing when you teleport is to just use your memory and learn the fixed positions of the gens. And there you have it. Hopefully there was at least a few pointers on this list that was useful to you. There are more to talk about, but we will have to do that another time. Until then, have an amazing day and cheerio!